Welcome to another episode of Footnotes. Today we're talking to Bert Sorin of Sorinex here in Lexington, South Carolina, maker of fitness equipment and known worldwide from their cool marketing programs like Squattober and Deadcember. Everyone knows about the mustache design and things like that. But this is a conversation that I really didn't expect to have. Bert spoke so well of his business and where they've been over the years, from his dad starting it in their garage in 1980 all the way to where they are now and everything in between. Check it out. So we're here today with Bert Sorin of Sorinex here in Lexington, South Carolina, here on Footnotes. And hey, thanks for jumping into this with us. I was noticing in the research to get ready for this conversation, you guys do a good job of giving the history of the company on the website. And it's easy to see that your dad began this, and it was sort of a classic story of, you had 5 or 6 day jobs, and at night you would come home and turn on the welding machine and try to make a product that he wanted to use.
Right.
But I guess if we can, for you as his son and kind of growing up and watching all that, what was that like to be in an entrepreneurial household where you had the 4 or 5 day jobs and you had the night thing and all that? What was that like?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting. I don't know if I ever viewed it in the early days as a kid as an entrepreneurial household. First of all, I probably wouldn't have known what that term was, but it was daddy is always tired, dirty, out of time, and building things. It was more building things. My dad builds stuff.
Okay.
And so I saw that versus the business side. And then as I got a little bit older, I'd hear, things like University of Kentucky and Tennessee and different coaches' names and things like that. So that part would come home and you would talk about, we're making some amazing things for Kentucky or making amazing things for Reno or whoever. And so it started going in my mind like, oh, daddy's making these things, these heavy things that I see in the garage or see all these different places that are going elsewhere to these other big entities that I'm heard of on TV.
Sure.
And so you kind of start understanding the footprint and the reach. And then as you get a little bit older and when you start having the more adult conversations of, money flow and partnerships, and you get a little bit of that background, and you see stress, and you understand that it's not always cut and dry of what, I make this product, everything goes well, we get money in the house, and so you start feeling those background pains and those labor pains of that. And that was the context that I needed early on to understand that this lifestyle isn't always easy.
Sure. But it sounds like it wasn't a total turnoff. You're the president of the company now.
Strangely. Yeah, and really I came to that by going to South Carolina, loving the training aspect, the strength and conditioning aspect. I like building things, take after my dad's footsteps in that regard from a solutions side. Always held that in high regard, that there were cool things that he would invent that I could see changing the world of strength. I wanted to be able to do that, but more than anything, I wanted to be able to help him out because I saw the point where he was just overrun. He needed someone on his team that was, he could 100% trust. I was interested in it, so I came on not as a business move to be a president, CEO, or any of the above. It was I'm going to help dad out. And because he looks like he's over his skis right now with work, and I could probably help. Because when I grew up, I was in the shop building things, and so I knew it wasn't going to be chipping BBs and sawing steel and things like that.
Right.
But that's kind of the direction that I went with it. But to think of myself as an entrepreneur or a business leader, that was not it in the early days. It was, I'm out of college. I was still training for the Olympic trials in 2000, and then subsequently 2004. So the training lifestyle and strength and conditioning was top of mind. And so if you could have a vocation that puts you in a relevant position within the industry that you're interested in, that seems, and also you're helping your dad out.
Sure.
It seems like a pretty easy fit.
So, this is such an interesting intersection. There seems to be several of them where the business started out of something that sort of making something they wanted to use. Your dad was into strength and conditioning and coaching and things like that. And then you had an athletic career where up until that point, I mean, you had been training for something.
Correct.
Using probably some of the family equipment, if you will.
Using our babies, yeah.
What is it like for that person where you have so many intersections of you're doing what you like, you're working with people you love, you're able to make a living, you're able to employ people. What's that like when those things collide?
It's interesting. It's a lot like having kids. You know, there's mixed emotions. You know, you're inextricably tied.
Sure.
To the business, to my dad. It's like, at one point I would say, okay, my dad's my dad, my mentor, my business partner, my best friend, my hunting buddy, and at times, we're here because it's. You got, what do they say? Like two big bulls in a field. There's going to be, times where there has to be some talks back and forth. But that's the cool part is we've been able to get through those things, and work together for 22 years. And I feel very blessed on that. And he's given me the content and the context over his lifetime of work. And I was able to pick that up and then put it into a new frame of reference where I was in the industry, younger, coming out into the industry. The industry has changed somewhat, and I was in my athletic prime going for a world-renowned sport. So that it just put me in a very unique position. But to go back to your question, all of that is so melted together. It's legitimately a family business to the point where the business and life become, is it art imitating life or life imitating art? And you really, some days it's one or the other, both, and they reverse roles all the time. And so I kind of laughed at one point, and I've tried at times to say, well, I have this job. And then I realized at one point, I get paid every couple of weeks for my life. I do my life. This is what my life is. And yeah, cool. Every once in a while I get a check for it. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you kind of buy into that level, then all the other stuff falls away, because then there's not other options, at least mentally and emotionally. There's not other options. This is what we do. And you make it work. You make it work at times and it shouldn't have worked, because it's like a marriage or your kids or whatever. They might be hard to deal with, or the situation might be difficult, but you're not going to have kids anymore.
Right.
I'm their parent. Like, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, so kind of along the lines of, you coming into the business, you were sort of a power user, if you will, of this equipment, and you were in training and you were in the industry at the same time. You notice things. We're here in your shop, and see all these things on the wall. You got equipment all around here. I mean, it's like a giant showroom. But things like Squat-tober,
Sure,
Dead-cember, are those things that you kind of brought in, kind of along the lines of, hey, it's a new world. There's a new media world. We've got to engage more people than just people who are training for the Olympics.
Yes. Squat-tober was the genesis of that. And it was literally, 7 years ago, I was on the phone. I kept thinking, it was in September, and I called Aaron Osmus, who was working for us at the time, and actually still is, does all the programming for Squat-tober. And I was like, hey, we ought to do like a month dedicated to like the squat. Like that, it's the king of lifts. And it was like, could be like Squat-timber. I'm like, it's already like September 15th at this point. It's like, maybe we just make it Squat-tober, because that's next month. Literally, it was that long of a conversation. And the idea wasn't even to program training at that time. It was just, let's post something every day that talks about this lift and just kind of shine some light onto this. And we did that for basically a year. And then the next year, Aaron was like, well, I'm going to start writing programming for this that people could follow. It's like, oh, cool, that's a great idea. So that was his idea, and he did it through Pen and Paper Strength app. He's a very well-renowned college strength coach. And so the idea was, well, hey, if we're going to talk about something that's difficult, which is squat, because it's not easy for anyone, but everyone needs to do them. So let's unite together and do something hard for 30 days, and to kind of bring dissimilar groups together and say, okay, cool, doesn't matter all the dividers you could name. That doesn't matter. If you got 2 legs and you could go down and come back up, we're squatting.
Right.
And so it's hard, and it's hard for everyone. So let's all do it together for the next 30 days to see if we could all do something difficult together for 30 days. And then really, I think 4 or 5 years ago, we finally had someone all 7 continents doing Squattober. And it's growing immensely, the following. And then a couple years ago when, there was really a lot of divisive stuff, it's like, hey, how about United We Squat? Like, why don't we all, again, get together? Because so many things right now, especially in the social media and media world, are divisive. We saw it as an opportunity to bring people together over just streamlined hardship. That's what it is. We're going to make something very hard for you that's going to be predictable and streamlined, and it's going to be safe, it's going to be effective, and your life will be better if you do this hard thing for 30 days. And so it was really just a service to our community, and it kind of turned out it was a from business side, it's a pretty good business thing. I mean, I think we gained 20,000 followers this month. So there's that. You have articles that have been written about it, and different magazines and some things like that. I guess you're doing something good when you have knockoffs that hit on Amazon, knockoff Squattober shirts, and other people are doing Squattobering, and I find that kind of funny.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah, so you gotta know, and now we have haters too, which is great.
Okay.
So when you have haters, I think that's when you're doing something good.
Yeah.
People are saying, that Squattober's a dumb idea. It's like, literally, then don't do it.
Right.
Like, seriously, just don't do it.
Yeah, it's absolutely optional.
It's totally optional. But,
and you talk about streamlined hardship, and I've heard you speak on this before about inefficient work.
Correct.
In terms of what exercise is. You guys do a really good job of juxtaposing words that seem like opposites, but you're able to put them together. Why do you do that?
I think it's explanatory in some ways. There's an emotional response in some ways as well. There's also the science of things, and there's the art of things. And sometimes the art of, I consider what we do as strength art. There's the science, the why it works.
Sure.
But the art is the how it works and what it makes you feel like and the customer experience with it. And I think we're one of the first companies that really looked at that from that side. But like a streamlined hardship or a, inefficient work. And, I recognized probably 10 or 12 years ago that the strength conditioning space or the human performance space, it's not on the same growth curve, nor can it be with the rest of the world from a technology standpoint.
Interesting.
So the reason why is, what is the point of technology? The point of technology is to make work easier or more efficient.
Sure.
Pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Well, I started looking at it and I go, if you make strength conditioning easier and more efficient, you literally make it less effective. Why it works is because it's hard. It's inefficiently hard. So every other industry pushes so hard to make work easier and easier and easier, thus making us softer and softer and softer as humans. So in some ways, strength conditioning is the last bastion of hardening of the human body, because we're literally trying to make things harder than they are already. So then the idea of streamlining that hardship is, instead of having to just walk outside and push on trees or do all this random things that are between easy and impossible, somewhere on that continuum.
Yeah, move that pile of rocks.
Yeah, exactly. People are, I had a great workout, I was tired, I puked. I can make you puke doing 100 different things that won't help you. They'll be hard. You'll probably get stronger per se, but the streamlined hardship is, how do we get to that hardship as efficiently? How do we efficiently make it inefficient? We could get you programmed to that hardship as fast and as safe and as measurable as possible, so you have the desired outcome on the other end, so you don't have to do a bunch of random stuff for hours upon hours. If I could give you 43 minutes of streamlined hardship that'll give you the result on the back end to make you a harder, stronger, faster, harder to kill person, then that's what streamlined hardship and inefficient work is. And so when we came to the realization that efficient work is actually the antithesis of what we're trying to do here, I think that's when we took another step ahead. But that the art of it is make it efficient, inefficient work.
Yeah.
And that's where people generally miss it.
So on the lines of human performance coaching and human performance, even potential, you guys developed something a few years ago, I think, called Summer Strong.
Yes.
And I've seen some videos from it. And while you can tell that people are there to learn some things, I mean, it sounds also like you're changing lives.
That's the point.
Okay.
That's the point.
So why did you start it, and what is it supposed to do?
Okay, so it started 14 years ago as my dad's birthday party. So,
Okay.
hey, Pops, what do you want to do for your birthday? I don't know, invite some people over. Let's have some food, some drinks, lift weights. It'll be a great time. So that week we put it out on the internet. Hey, we're having an open house this weekend. If you want to come by, it's Pops' birthday. 38 people from 5 states showed up. We're like, oh, sweet, this is great.
Wow.
We had a good time, but what we found almost immediately was we had, at that time it was like sandbag training was just starting. So someone came in and they just started training with sandbags. Well, what I watched was the Olympic lifters and the power lifters and the strongmen were listening to the sandbag guy. And so they started training and trying a new modality of training. Well, right after that, it turned into Olympic weightlifting. Well, all these other practitioners of a different event, they started listening to him and trying these things out. And then it transferred into this. And at the end of it, I got looking, I said, okay, we had these dissimilar people from the genres within the strength and conditioning world, but because there were other professionals there and because their guard was down, they all unified together and learned from one another with respect. And that was beautiful for me to see. So that was kind of became the goal. How do we pull people that all live that lifestyle, the hardened lifestyle, but from different neighborhoods of that lifestyle, put them in a room, shake the room, and sit back and see what happens. So 6-7 years into it, we started having legitimate presenters who would show up, and they'd be, so we were, give them time slots and everything like that. Allegedly, it was literally, we first walked in and that people just went. And we're like, okay, cool, this is great. Then we started programming people in, and then we had a couple people that what I would consider went there. They transcended over what is normally seen as a human performance strength conditioning presentation. They either talked about emotional things or things in their life. And all of a sudden, it was like you felt this ground shift. We're like, oh, we're on to something here, because this has shifted past the nuts and bolts of training. And if people are open to doing that, there's actual strength, not just physical and mental strength. There's emotional, social, financial, spiritual strength, things that are being developed within people that is so far beyond steel rectangles and a squat. That is what it started shifting into. And people ask me now, what is Summer Strong? Well, is it still my dad's birthday party? Sure. But it's a seminar, a competition, a cookout, a family reunion, a TED Talk, a group therapy. It's all of those things and more, because it all rides off of what does the crowd, what are they doing? And then the people that are up on the stage, they're the avatar and they're the pace setters of the weekend. But there's 100 people in the crowd that could carry a national convention themselves. That's the cool part about it. You see someone in the crowd, you're like, that guy should be up here talking, not me. But that's the key of the whole thing. Is our joke is you're not the coolest person in the room, no matter who you are. And so when people realize that, when they walk through the room, they look around and they go, okay, this is the A-listers of the A-listers. And the joke is, yeah, there's 50 people you've never heard of that are in here that are also A-listers that you just don't know yet. So it becomes an exploratory thing that everyone could get involved in. Remove your ego, remove all the barriers that are up, that what you think of the strength and conditioning industry as, flush those down the toilet and rebuild from ground zero. So that's what Summer Strong is, and that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we've been able to do.
That's a great story. I didn't realize that it coincided with your dad's birthday, but like I said, it's something I've been aware of just kind of in my, outside of Footnotes life. And then as I was researching this and getting ready for this conversation, a particular gentleman struck me. I think he's a blade maker from Hawaii.
Yes, Neil Kamimura.
Neil, yeah.
Did you watch his presentation?
I did, yeah.
Perfect example, right?
Unbelievable.
And he was, I would say he was the most transcendent of as far as didn't expect that one coming, right?
Right.
But you talk about emotional strength and courageousness. In my opinion, it's almost impossible to beat that. Not that it's a competition, but you go, okay, what he shared, a small half Japanese, half Hawaiian knife maker who doesn't lift weights, what he shared heart-wise was equal to what anyone I've seen in 14 years.
Yeah, we'll post a link to that.
And so that's when I feel we're on that right wavelength of what Summer Strong is, when people feel comfortable enough to do things like that. And then you have professional sports teams, and you have professional athletes and college athletes and high school athletes and all these people that are to witness something like that and be a part of that. That changes them as a person, and then they could go back to their respective teams and tribes and go, okay, I'm a better person now. I could bring you back this jewel that I found. And that's how I believe we legitimately change lives and amplify that.
So let's land it on this. We talked earlier about this being a multi-generational company, and you and your dad get to work together, and you guys he's mentor and business partner and sometimes sparring partner, I think,
it'd be foolish it's like saying, we've been married for 30 years, but it's been great every day. No, it hasn't. It just hasn't. And it's nothing against one or the other. You get people together for a couple decades, there's going to be friction at times.
Sure.
No problem. That's how it goes.
Well, and a remark you made also was, you remember Dad being tired and dirty and all those kind of just challenges that getting something from 0 to 1, is very difficult.
With no mentor.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You're going to break a lot of eggs on that first good omelet, right?
So that's where he was, and you guys are working alongside each other, and that's that kind of founder pressure that is you hear a lot about. But for you, the next generation, where do you feel the pressure? Where do you feel some of that strain in terms of, say, the next 30 years of the business?
I'd say some of the biggest pressures right now are the unknowns that you can't control, that we see in our world right now, whether it's politically, economically. We've
the little health thing we've got going on too.
Yeah, the little health thing, taxes, mandates. It's just a wonderful day for running a business. But that's the stuff really I'm more concerned about, because you can't plan on the unknown on that side. You have to kind of gamble and guess like the rest of the world is doing.
Right.
Whereas, you have personnel issues inside, you have warranty issues, you have design issues. Like, we're pretty good with that. We've been around 41 years. We know that game. The pressures, is there a pressure for me? Sure, there's a pressure for me I want to grow the business to the point that my dad is excited about still having his name on it and being an owner. And have we grown that tree out of the acorn that he planted 41 years ago?
Yeah.
And is it something that he looks at and goes, wow, I'm glad I was here for this. And so my pressure is making my dad proud for what he's created. And I've picked up the sword and started swinging, because we have two different job descriptions. He came in a forest with a machete and hacked a path. And turned it into a 2-track road and to something great. And then I came through and widened the road a little bit. And then together we've made it a 4-lane highway. But there's always different challenges with each one. 4-lane highways all of a sudden have regulations and speed limits and things like that. When you have a machete you're kind of at the Wild West. And he was in the Wild West. I'm in a civilized, first world country. They're two different animals, but they're the same. And so his challenges were significantly different than mine. I can never go back and experience those same challenges that he did. And thankfully, he's here as a mentor and guidance as we go through these new challenges together, because every step is a new challenge that maybe we haven't dealt with before. So I feel that pressure from the history side, of course, the current pressure of running a business. But then there's the part of me that says, I'd love my kids to have an opportunity in this. I'd love the employees that we have now that we have, multiple families that rely on this company to do their life at the level they're looking for. That's an additional pressure. I don't want to let close to 200 people and their families down by decisions that we make. So the pressures have changed. There's a part of me that goes, gosh, that would have been awesome to only have to worry about me, you know, and then there's the other side of me goes, wow, it's amazing that we have the footprint we do. And, you know, I get excited when one of our customers wins a Super Bowl or a world championship and this or that and the other. And I go, gosh, we have this effect on the community that we care for so much. And we feel the weight of that. We want to make sure that our military that buys from us, they're as strong and as capable as possible. I don't like when I hear my friends, you know, of course I don't like it. It's gut-wrenching when friends of mine text me, they say, hey, we lost a group over here because of the war. And these are like not guys they've heard about. These are guys they served with. And these are my good friends telling me this. Or maybe guys I met before, or the guys I know trained on our stuff and worn a Sorinex shirt. They're not with us anymore. And that hits hard because I go, sometimes when it's your time, but like, what could we do as a company to put a better product or a better service out there that'll keep those guys and girls safe? And, you know, thus keeping our country safe and free. So there's a lot of weight that goes along with it, more than just profit and loss sheets.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. Of course. And you know, we talked about a couple of different things, and you know, there's. I'm not just blowing glitter around the room, but there's something about. It reminds me of a conversation we have with another business owner. And he's like, the 13 children whose parents work for my business depend on me to make good decisions. There's something about people that understand how many families are affected by the paycheck, the livelihood, the work, and all that stuff. And we need more. We need to multiply that mindset across the business community. And the good news is, I think in the private business world, the companies that don't have stock tickers and have Wall Street Journal articles written about them, like that is a lot of the
that
ethos.
still is there with those people that have been loyal to you for years. And I mean, one of our metrics, of course, we have the typical metrics that most companies have. Sure. But one of our metrics is, when do our employees buy their first home? When do they buy, their starter home? When do they get to buy their next level home? When do they get to buy a second car in their family? Some guys have told me, they said, no one in my family's ever owned a second car in their family, and we've never owned a home, like my line of family. And they're like, since I've been here, we've moved out of a single wide trailer into a rental house. Now we bought a house, and my family just bought our second car. Like that's the modality or the metrics that I go, okay, that's cool. We're designing some things and some infrastructure that's legitimately changing the lives around us. But that's a lot of pressure, which goes with it, because then I realize, based upon my position, my actions could make a difference of where that kid goes to school.
Yeah. Hey, thank you for sitting down with us. And thank you for doing what you guys are doing, for going the distance in your business, and for just all these things that are outside of what most people would say is your responsibility. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.